breakfast item before things get really serious, though I think you should understand, those of you who are not English understand the English are that they're most serious when they're appearing to be not serious. So, actually, I was having a conversation at breakfast with a couple of guys. One of them inevitably was one of my ex-students. I think there are others here. Hello again. Which was to do with the fact that I never really started building till I was about 50. In fact, people used to say to me, if you have a kid, it'll change your life. And I hadn't had any kids at that time. And if you build it, it'll change your life. It was complete bullshit. It was intended to keep you off the case. But let me tell you that now we're really seriously on the case, whatever other labels you carry. But this morning I'm going to tell you, of course, about the things that are not to do with KSA. Basically, I'm going to show you some stuff that is either side of that, shall we say. Okay, and I'm going to be a bit pontifical, if I dare, but it's, again, not serious pontification. A building should contain at least one clear idea. It's amazing you come to places like this and you say, what's the idea? What's the idea? Staff? Yes, it's in real estate terms, it's probably very efficient, etc., etc. And it has a road and the sea and stuff. But it's very difficult to think what the actual idea was. What was the motivation of it? And also, I would say, coming from the swamps of the north, and of course, Stevie H, we're a bit of dodgy, because I'm from the swamps of the north, and I'm very much a sort of North European, and Branko comes from the spooky Balkans. And so we're both a bit dodgy, but actually we really feel with those strange cultural backgrounds that there are lots of things that we still can offer the desert. A building should be memorable. I think the general public, not just us, but the general public, they say, oh, I saw that thing. Good, bad, sideways. So we went into town last night, and again, it was certain of a mixture of aesthetics, atmosphere, and the quirky that made it a nice kind of, sort of a little bit like the Ramblers, but nonetheless a sort of memorable place. I really feel strongly, and I think there are a lot of particularly since I came originally out of academia, there are a lot of po-faced, black-suited architects always have this grim, I'm not showing it, so I'm going to a slide of these grim-faced characters. But and then they don't want the building to make you feel good, they want it to make you feel sensible, normal, that they've used the square meters efficiently as this room obviously does. But I think it should make you feel good, and I'm glad to say that the buildings that I have done, when we go and visit them again, people say, we really like being in your building, for, it cheers us up or whatever. But it should work in a common sense way, and I'm very aware of being amongst a very common sense group of people to which I bow. So that's the background of what I'm going to talk about. Now, probably the most known thing that I've done is this Kunsthaus in Graz with Colin Fournier. And it's there 20 years later, still in good nick. I was in there the other day. And it is intended as an icon. There's no question about that. It doesn't just hold art and people. And it had a very simple idea. The pin, which is the route up through the building, and I knew the site very well before I ever did the competition for the building. And the other thing, it has a pin, which is the route way that holds the whole together, and it has a skin. The building is a pin and a skin. Don't ask for anything more. Well, you get really rather more, because it's a building which has many feelings as you move around it. It's never the same image. Sometimes the big blue blob, sometimes it's a sort of series of crevices, and it has, of course, this amazing big facade which the guys from Berlin did, and it's not perhaps now the state of the art, but it's just done with bathroom fittings. It's cheap and cheerful, and it works, and it's, you can any program greeting what the hell on it. So it's rather like body art. The communication rides the skin of the building. And back to the pin and the skin is the clear idea. You go up into the unknown. You simply go up to travel into this unknown. You don't know what's going to happen. And it is the guys that make the exhibition. that actually make the interior architecture. And some of them have been, you know, they're not always brilliant exhibits in there, but some have been really, really memorable, and the people use the instrument, this body, and then make the surprise piece of theatre. And I do feel that many buildings should be pieces of theatre. You know, life is good or boring or whatever, and then suddenly you come into a building, it makes you feel good, and makes you think of other things. This particular Peter Kogler installation was very, very sympathetic to the building. And if we look at it, should be sensible, it should work. It's actually very efficient, done with a wonderful firm of engineers who we're still working with as I speak, Bollinger and Grohmann, who are based in Frankfurt. They're wonderful. And that it uses a lot of devices to feed back from the city it finds itself in. And it works. It's a complex structure, but actually quite cheap. The Collegiate, I mean, not only have I been an academic, but I think the notion of the Collegiate, the building that is talking to other buildings, I know the a priori here, the Wissenschaftsuniversity in Vienna, because there were 6 buildings simultaneously, the Zahra building just behind us, etc., etc. And we have all had to fit together into a community, into a series of courtyards, and we love the idea that was something that we had to do. We had to sit in, and we made a whole lot of terraces. We backed onto a forest. We had 2 large buildings, both in our province, and the cheerful entry to the 2 buildings with the cafe on the corner and the common room on the left corner, so that you greet the people moving through that space, and as they sit on the terraces, they look deeply into the collegiate common space of the university. And I like slinky spaces. I like the idea of moving. We don't sort of walk like that. Not really. We tend to walk like that, I hope. And the periphery of the building is very much to do with the internal spaces that are created by moving the building, so you bring the sun into the middle, and then you have these interstitial spaces between teaching rooms where people can hang out. I mean, it's perilously close to the first district of Vienna, which is a great place to hang out. So to convince sort of well-meaning lawyers and so on to sit around after 4 o'clock in the afternoon in a collegiate building, at least it's an intention. It's the old intention of community and proximity and people and hanging out. And I hope tonight and this afternoon, whatever, there'll be plenty of hanging out, not just us sitting in our little neat seats. And sunshine corners. Now this one, sometimes it moves, but let's just say, imagine it moving, that one designs and draws with a certain sort of pen the way that one moves around space. And then sunshine corners. And it has that feel-good factor. And when each time, I've been back about 4 times to the building, and it's mostly ladies sitting in there, and they always say, "Oh, we like your building, it's much more cheerful than the other ones," and other people are envious that we live in this sunshine building, because Vienna is grey and white. It's very beautiful, elegant, but I sometimes get really pissed off with grey and white architecture. And you know, if you look at a lot of the historical pictorializations of old civilizations, they were coloured. They coloured their buildings. Their churches were full of paintings. Their temples were full of paintings. Their walls were coated. And we're also timid in this moment. Not in that university. The third is also a university smaller but not tiny, the memorable space in a warm climate. Queensland is not as warm as KSA, but it still has its moments of extreme warmth. And dealing with the sun, keeping the sun trapped but present is very important. This is the east-west street of the building. And the feel-good factor, I did a series of cartoons for the competition, and we still won the competition, didn't put them off. And I said, one of the things is, it's going to be a building where it's all happening. So there's my cartoon done before the building was built. And there's some people, particularly a nice toothy man in the front, from Queensland, obviously, and he's thoroughly enjoying it. They're having a good time in that building, as are the students, in letting them, giving them all, designing them the furniture, letting them move it around, make their own internal spaces. It's memorable, I think. It's a bit cathedral-like, dare I say, and it works. Warm side, cool side, street, moving up the hill, the scoops, which are the structure, but also little sort of breakout spaces, and it works. Another cartoon based on years and years. Those of you who come from SciArc will recognize the scene and the space provided. This is really Branko's job. I was only merely a critic on it, but it carries on the same thing. What is this building about? This building is about focus. Focus, there's an old, hallowed house that has to be turned into a museum, and some space. He creates a pavilion in the center from which you can focus towards the house or towards the quiet garden. And in a busy city, you need places to escape into the quiet. We're lucky in London, we have a lot of those. I think in Tirana, they have rather fewer. And then these focuses break down into further foci as you move into the building. It's memorable because it's a mysterious building in which you just see the feet dangling out. And then, in fact, it expresses itself towards the garden, towards the historic house. So the building is, in a sense, self-effacing, but is quirky enough to have intrigue as a sort of interesting mixture of self-effacement and saying at the same time. And last thing I'm going to show is in an institution that I studied in way back before I went to the Architectural Association, which is now an arts university, and it's simply a studio, drawing in a place that my first time when I learned how to draw, because I wasn't a natural drawer, I learned how to draw in this institution, and then they asked me to make a building to celebrate drawing, which was nice. I have a clear idea. All it is a studio. You make it special and secret inside and white, so that there is nothing to get between you and the act of looking and drawing. So it's just a normal north light, but you can't see people outside. The people outside can, again, it's that showing feet thing. They can see that there's something going on there that they can't really interfere. I think it's fairly memorable. Certainly the university itself ruthlessly uses this building over and over and over and over, advertising that they're progressive. And I guess some students come for that reason, God knows why, otherwise. It certainly has a feel-good feel in the interior. And there's just a hint of where you are, because Bournemouth is very known for its pine trees. So the pine trees if you want to be distracted from your easel or your table, you remember you're in Bournemouth because of the pine trees. And it's a simple thing, north light, balanced light at the back, just to keep an even amount of light. And that's it. Built in a shipyard in Germany, in steel panels, brought in, spot welded like a ship. And the setting, of course, always, in all my work and Branko's, I think, that we think of the characters that are within. We're always talking about, we invent scenarios, we invent almost plays within plays of the people who work there. I drew this cartoon, and then I afterwards explained who the people in the cartoon were, knowing the sort of mix that you get in such an art school. And they're all based on sort of local or visiting characters. enjoy. This is stuff that's on the board at the moment. Can't tell you about it, but enjoy the conference. And I hope I've been useful for the digestion. Thank you.